I hate social media, but my partner likes it. Do I still need to use it? Do we have to have separate accounts even though we have separate audiences? That's question number one. Question number two is I want to grow my business. I'm in a position to. But how do I scale it where I'm not seeing every client? They're coming for me, right? These are some of the topics that we go over in this conversation with Michaela and Donovan, who are two business partners. And I think you'll find this really, really illuminating. They're really good questions to ask. And they're questions that I think are important to ask at any stage of your business. You know, if you say that you hate social media, should you use it? Do you have to use it, right? It's a good question. There's no right or wrong answer necessarily. And then, of course, the question of like, oh, how do I scale if I'm not seeing every single client myself? Aren't they coming for me? The answer is no, they're not. And that's a bit of a kick in the ego nuts sometimes when you realize that maybe you're a little bit less important in the actual delivery of your business than you are. But also, it's a little bit freeing. So anyway, hope that you really enjoy this conversation with Michaela and Donovan as a hot seat from my mentorship. And I'll be back at the end of it to have a little bit of a chat afterwards. Enjoy. Kayla and Donovan, you guys are up. Same type of thing. If you can go over real quick, kind of who you are, what you do, and what we're talking about today.
Cool. So we're a little bit newer to OTM. We are just about to do our first launch next week. So we're currently in pre-launch.
Sweet.
Yeah, super exciting, but also a lot.
Yep.
I think where we're a little bit like concerned right now, or just really trying to plan out, is like how both of us can play into the business. So I'm getting most engagements. Most people are reaching out to me, I think, because I'm more active on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone is reaching out to me, and I'm having an issue where we're able to book both of us like on calls because people are kind of seeing me as the face of the business, but he has more knowledge than I do when it comes to training and like more experience.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just trying to like figure out how we can make this work to where it plays to both of our strengths.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, Donovan, or is that good?
No, that's pretty much it. I've never been one to be social. Like I hate social media. I really do. But I was like, man, you know what? I'm gonna just suck it up and just try and figure it out. But yeah, essentially, yeah, same thing. So it's just pretty much what we're trying to figure out right now.
Okay, I was going to respond one way, but I'm going to respond a little bit different way based off what you just said. I think you probably know what I'm going to say. If you hate social media, you don't need to use social media, especially if your partner likes it and is doing well on it. I don't think that you really need to. And I mean, if you come out straight up and you're just like, I hate social media, like you ain't going to do a good job on it. It's just straight up. It's just, you're just not. Let me ask you a question, Michaela. How did you find OTM? Was it through my Instagram?
Yeah, I think I had reshared something of yours and you actually messaged me and was like, hey, I noticed that you don't follow me. How'd you find me? And I started following you from there. And
Okay.
we had been talking about looking into a mentorship for a while. And I was like, hey, I really like what this guy posts. We should check this out.
Okay, so there's a whole bunch of lessons there, but I won't get into all of those.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So you followed me on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
You found my content, then you followed me on Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
You only knew who I was. You didn't know who anybody else in the company was.
Yeah.
I put out, I guess, a call that we were inviting people into the mentorship because we do that every month or two. And you spoke to somebody else on your first call, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
me. And then you spoke to somebody else on your second call. And then you were matched with a coach who wasn't me still.
Mm-hmm.
And every week you do coaching with probably 2 to 4 other people who are specialists in whatever they do, who are also not me.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it has to be you?
I don't think that it does, but I've gotten pushback where I've been like, hey, like and people know both of us because we both coach at a local gym here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had told someone, hey, like I can do this time, but you're gonna be speaking with Donovan. And she's like, oh, I would prefer to talk to you. So it's like
Yeah.
that sort of thing. I don't know if it's because we coach women that women are like, I would prefer to talk to you, but I really want to make it important or like known that it's both of us, and that we can both handle the calls and things like that.
Yeah.
So the woman wanting to speak with another woman could be a real thing. So it's not necessarily that it's Donovan, right? They might just like want to speak to a woman, which is not unreasonable. I mean, so that might be something to consider if you're getting that of have a woman coach that works with you. Here's what it comes down to. I mean, if you're the face of the business, if you were to perform the phone calls, particularly like the sales calls, you will get a higher conversion rate than if somebody else performs those calls.
Right.
Patrick and Dan and Kyle and Krista to some of them. Our phone calls, we call them student advisors, but let's call them what they are, the sales calls. They do very good. They're very good at what they do. I would still, and I'm not as good at sales as them, but I can tell you right now that my calls would convert better than them. But that's kind of a part of running a business that you have to reconcile with and say, okay, where's my energy at? Like, yeah, they would prefer to speak to you. You can decide whether that's an option or not. It's your business. And if they say, I really want to speak to you or speak to nobody, you say, I totally understand. Look, the truth of the matter is, I'm a phenomenal coach, but I'm not that great at this part of the process. And I'd rather bring in an expert for somebody at this part of the process to get to know you. And if that's not something that you feel comfortable with, if you really want to work with me, look, totally respect that. But unfortunately, that's not an option. There's so much confidence largely comes on the client side. Confidence comes from rigidity in somebody's process. When somebody is very rigid, and also when somebody is very much willing to say, no, this is how it is, this is how my process works because I know that I can get results for you this way, there's a lot of confidence that comes with that. And there's also a tremendous amount of respect that somebody has when you push back on things like that. I mean, in a respectful way. But when you push back on things like that, like if you were to interview with somebody and they say, oh, or you were to say to them, oh, I'd really love to talk to you. And they say, look, I'm not a part of this part of the company. I'm fortunate that what we're doing is so successful that I'm having to bring in other people to help me in areas where maybe I'm not as strong, so that I can show up for you in bigger ways on the coaching side. If that's not something that you're comfortable with, then I totally understand. You'd almost gain like respect for them that way. You tell me, how does that feel? How does that land? I mean, I get it. Like, especially if you're getting some pushback, I do get that it could be hard for sure.
Yeah, I think we've just been trying to figure out like how again to play to our strengths. He feels a little bit more comfortable with the enrollment calls. I know that's obviously something I still need to work on and not just like totally shy away from them. But I think he's had a higher conversion rate than I've had.
I'm gonna hook you up, Donovan, with Len Jones. He's actually a coach in the Online Trainer Academy. He doesn't do the mentorship, but he's my co-host on a podcast as well. But he only trains mothers, and he's a man and not a mother and doesn't have children and isn't married. And he approaches his training with so much, and his coaching and his sales calls with so much empathy and so much tact that his people really love him. I think he'd be able to give you some good guys. I mean, we talk about, there was actually a whole podcast episode that we did about this as well, which I'll send you. But yeah, I'll introduce you guys.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Can I ask
Okay.
you one more question on that?
For
Would
sure.
you say then, since Donovan does not love social media and it literally takes him 5 hours to make a reel, that I could
God.
just take over the content side and we
Yes.
just focus on my
Yeah.
social media?
Content is, it is way better to take a sniper approach than it is to take a shotgun approach with content. One piece of content that hits hard can do the same job as hundreds of pieces of content that are just okay. It is such a top 1%er type world, and you never even know necessarily what's going to hit hard when you post it. But there is absolutely an energetic component, and I can't really describe it, but you're like, oh, this person really believes and is aligned and gives a shit and feels what they're posting, what they're talking about, or yeah, this person is just slapping some shit up because they feel like they have to today.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you can feel that, right?
Mhm.
And so, and I also think that all you need is, I mean, all you need is one face, really. Um, and one strong personal brand almost focuses you better as well. I know the people that you like to coach is a little bit different. Whereas Donovan is more kind of athletes and yours is more the women that you work with. But Donovan doesn't mean you can't train the people, but it might mean that you're not as aggressive of building your business with those people. You know, you'll work more on referrals, you'll work more on people talking because you're good at what you do.
Yeah.
And then you're both putting a lot of your energy into this brand that is making waves, is getting attention, and building up really the business foundations on there.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think in any partnerships like this, one is better than two. I mean, God, it's hard enough to build one business. You try to build two at the same time.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's
So
a high workload.
focus on what is performing.
Focus on what's working and what feels natural and what feels easy. I've been reading a lot of Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett's work lately, and a lot of like their interviews and like pretty dense stuff. But overwhelmingly, what they both say, so, you know, like the famous investors, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, and overwhelmingly what they say is like, we're not in this position because we made better decisions than anybody else. We're in this position because we made fewer bad decisions. And what we realized is that most people try to solve really, really hard problems, and some of them are successful. So we just find the easy problems to solve and ignore the hard ones. And I can't help but think that a lot of people that are trying to do this online fitness thing are immediately going towards the hardest problem they can possibly find, as opposed to saying, well, we're already doing this thing that's working. Why don't we just do more of that? Doesn't mean there's not opportunity somewhere else. There's lots of opportunity everywhere. That just sounds hard. Like building two businesses at the same time when one of them doesn't like and takes 5 hours to create one post on social media. Like, sounds hard to me.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. You bet. Hey, John again. What a fascinating, wide-ranging conversation that was. I hope that you really, really enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some clarity on perhaps your next steps or a better way to approach your important and valuable time. So that was a conversation from a hot seat in my mentorship. So I do run a high-end business mentorship. It's for people who are already doing at least $1,000 online a month in their fitness or nutrition business. If that's something you're interested in learning more about, having a conversation about, or even a little bit curious, please on Instagram send me a DM that just says mentor. I'm at It's Coach Goodman. In the meantime, if you're looking for another episode to listen to, I recommend episode 40. This episode's called Fixing the Holes in a Successful Online Coaching Company, a look behind the scenes. So in this episode, I was actually hired to consult for a really successful online coaching company. I think they had something like 17 trainers. And we went through and we fixed some of the gaps in the onboarding. We talked about a better way to generate referrals. And we also talked about things like language, just as one example. they're having trouble keeping clients for longer. After a client finishes their initial package, they're often not renewing. And we talked a lot about the language. They call the call that they try to renew their clients on a graduation call. Well, graduation insinuates that you are finished, that you completed the journey, right? What we all know is that fitness isn't a 3-month journey. Fitness is something that you do forever. And so changing the name of that call from a graduation call to something like a checkpoint call can actually change a lot of how that call is viewed. That's just one example, and it's a pretty small one, but tactical enough that I hope that it gets you interested to listen to it. So that's episode 40, Fixing the Holes in a Successful Online Coaching Company. A look behind the scenes. Just scroll back and wherever you listen to podcasts, and you will find that. Enjoy. Talk soon.